In this lesson, learn how to integrate the RevenueCat SDK into your Xcode project using Cocoapods. You'll also learn how to add the few snippets of code you'll need to display your in-app purchases in your app, to let the user purchase them, and to check the user's level of access. Hey CodeCrew, I'm Chris and welcome to Code with Chris, the place to be if you want to learn how to code and to build apps. This is the 5th lesson in the RevenueCat series. If you missed the previous lessons, please check out the playlist up there. And here's where we are in our 7-step process. Okay, let's get started. All right, so continuing where we left off, now we're going to integrate the RevenueCat SDK. Now, something handy to have is access to the documentation. There are several ways to include the SDK into your Xcode project. One of the easiest ways is just to use Cocoapods here. And if you don't know what they are or you've never used Cocoapods before, I'll link to a video explaining what they are and how to install them so that you can take advantage of this installation method. Alternatively, you can also use these other ways to do it, but I'm going to show you in this video doing it through Cocoapods. So let's go ahead and open up Terminal. All right, so I'm going to navigate to my desktop where my project folder is. Desktop RevCat demo. There we go. And I'm going to type pod init to create my pod file. And if I go ahead and open up that folder, that should be created in just a second right there. I'm going to open it up in text edit, and then we will take a look at our documentation. So this is what we need to include here. So let's go ahead and include that there. Save it. Let's go back to Terminal and type in pod install. All right, so let's go ahead and do that. All right, now that that's all done, let's try this again. Pod install. All right, now we're good. So what we're going to do is close our Xcode project. I had that preferences window open as well. And now you'll notice that in the folder we have an XC workspace, which is going to include the purchases pod. So let's open up the workspace instead of the Xcode project. We're opening that now. All right, and your project should include the pods here that you can see. And if you just press Command B and build the project, it should build successfully. So just make sure of that. All right, now that your project built successfully, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add some IBOutlets to the properties that, to the user interface elements that we're going to need to programmatically modify. For example, in this view controller, we're going to check if the user has access to the pro membership. If they do, we don't want to show this button. And instead, we're going to want to show the tours. We're also going to want to change this label here because this is prompting them to sign up for pro. So in order to change the text here, to hide the button, and also to insert new labels into this stack view, we're going to need a reference to those elements. So let's go ahead and open up Assistant Editor. And on this side here, we're going to have the view controller, that's right. And we're going to have a reference to the tour button. Let's call this the pro button because essentially it is going to our paywall there. And this is the tour label, which we'll probably want to change into actual tours if they have pro access. And we're also going to want a reference to this stack view here, this outer stack view, and I'm just going to call that stack view. And that's for the purpose of inserting new elements into that stack view. All right, now on the Pro View controller side, so let's go ahead and click that. What we're going to want to do for this is after we fetch the products from the RevenueCat side, we're going to want to create a button for each purchasing option that we get back. So we're really only going to need a reference to this stack view here. Oops, and I've accidentally renamed it. That's okay. After we connect it, I'll probably rename. So let's connect it. I'm again just going to call this stack view. All right, now let's go back to the documentation for a quick second, because there is another step that we're going to have to do in order to connect to the RevenueCat platform and finish the installation. So if you scroll all the way to the bottom, first of all is called import purchases up here in the app delegate, because we are going to initialize the SDK and connect to the platform by specifying our API key here. And then we're also going to double check that we've enabled the in-app purchase capability. So if you come here, this is something that we did in the beginning, but just double check for you that you have this. If you don't, just click on the plus icon here and you can search for in-app purchases. If it's not there, that's where it should be actually. Yeah, add capabilities by clicking the plus button above. All right, so just double check you have that. All right, now we're ready to go to the next step. Okay, so configuring purchases. In the application did finish launching, let's copy these 2 lines. So this is going to enable debug logs, which are really helpful when it comes to maybe it can't fetch the products or it can't connect to the platform. Then you'll see why in the debug console below. For the SDK or for the API key, you're going to log into your RevenueCat account, go under your app, and then under API keys, you're going to see it right there. So go ahead and copy that and just paste it in there and save it. Okay, let's go to the Pro View Controller, because we're going to start here. In this view controller, we are going to connect to the RevenueCat platform, fetch our offerings, which has the packages which contain the products, and we're going to create a button for each of those products and display them here. We're also going to handle a button tap on one of those purchase buttons so that we can process the transaction for the user. And then lastly, we're going to come back to the view controller here, and this is the home screen. And in the view did load, we're going to check the user's entitlements to make sure that they do have pro access. If they do, we're going to hide the pro button. We're going to change some of these things to reflect the pro entitlement. So let's go back to our documentation and just double check some of the code snippets that we're going to need. So in the Pro View Controller, I mentioned we're going to display our available products. Well, that's just this code snippet right here, right? And if you scroll down a little bit, when the user taps on one of those buttons that represents a product that they can buy, we just process the purchase with this little snippet of code. And then in the main view controller, where we want to check if the user has the pro entitlement, it's this little snippet of code, right? And we just have to insert our entitlement ID right here, which if you go back to your account and go under entitlements, that's this ID right here, pro. Okay, so let's go ahead and put some of these code snippets into our project. So displaying products, let's do that first. So I'm going to copy this, or you could just click that little button there. And let's go to Pro View Controller. In the view did load, this is what I'm going to do here. Fetch the offerings from RevenueCat and create buttons for each product. Don't forget to import the purchases framework so that it can recognize these things. Now, we don't have this show paywall method. This is just, your own code to show the current offerings. So we don't have that. We're going to remove that. Now the code we're left with, let's just examine that. We have a parameter called offerings, which contains all of our offerings, and an error parameter that we can check for errors. Now, if we go back to what we configured on the RevenueCat platform side, we only have one offering. So that makes it really easy for us. In fact, we can get our offer from, let's say, let offer equals offerings dot current, right? The current configured offering in the RevenueCat dashboard. If you have multiple, then you'd have to pick which one. But since we only have one, then that's it. So the next thing we need to do is get the packages within that offering. If you notice here, we do have two packages, an annual and a monthly. And inside each of those packages, we have one product, mainly the App Store product, right? Has the App Store identifier here. So we have, again, one offering, two packages, and one product in each of those packages. Right, so coming back here, we're going to say let packages equals offer dot available packages. All right, now what we're going to do is loop through the packages. So I'm going to do it this way. For I in 0 to packages.count, or yeah, okay, we can do that. So we'll just put a guard statement here just to check that those packages aren't nil, because it is an optional. It might not the offer might not have any packages. So we'll say let packages not equal to nil, else we're just going to return if there's no packages to go through. So we can force unwrap it there, and then we can loop through the packages. So we're going to get a reference to the package. Let's just like say P. Let P equals packages I. Actually, this isn't clear because we have products and packages. So let's say package, and we're going to get a reference to the product. So let product equal package dot product. Simple enough, right? Now we're going to get some details for it. The product title, product price, and as well as product duration, because it's a subscription. So this one's easy. Let title equals product dot localized title. Right, remember, you set that stuff up in App Store Connect when you configured the subscription. Product dot price, and check this out, the cost of the product in the local currency, and that's important because you never know where your user is. And let duration, actually this one is going to have to be a var, because we're going to have to do a little bit of logic to get the duration. So let's check this out. You see the product has a subscription period property, which returns an SK product subscription period. Right, so let's take a look at the documentation just on what this class is. It has a couple of properties, mainly that it tells us how many units it is. So if it's like 1 year, it's going to be 1. If it's 1 month, it's still going to be 1. Right? It's 1 unit. If it's going to be 14 days, it's going to be 14. And the unit is a type of skProduct.period unit. And this is going to describe to us whether it's talking about days, years, months. What is it? So these two pieces of information is what we're going to need. We're going to need to compare the unit with this enum, because this enum tells us, you know, we're going to need to compare it against the day, month, week, or year. I'm actually going to only compare it against month and year because I know we only have those two types of subscriptions. So just to put it into practice, I'm going to say let subscription period equal product dot subscription period, and let here I'm gonna check using a switch statement. So I'm gonna switch on the not the number of units, but I'm gonna switch on the unit. Okay, so case sk product dot period unit dot month. Right, so for this case, I'm going to set duration to, and I'm going to put the unit in there. The unit is going to be subscription period dot unit, and I'm going to concatenate that with month. Now, if I had subscriptions for like 2 months or 3 months or 4 months, then I would have to have some logic in here to write whether it should be months or month, right? Plural or singular. But since I know we only have 1 month and 1 year, that's what I'm going to put for now. And of course, if you want to make it more robust, because you never know if you're going to add additional subscriptions with different periods and different times in the future, you probably should handle that case right now. But for this demo, I'm not going to do that. All right, now we're going to do year, because I know we also have one for year. All right, and now we're going to have to handle the default case. And for that, we're just going to leave it as empty. All right, so I think, yeah, there's still going to be a ton of warnings until we actually use these variables that we're declaring. Okay, so now let's create a button, and we are going to add it to the view. We're going to position and size it, and that should be it. Let's see. All right, we're going to force unwrap that because we know there's a subscription period for the product. But if you're selling products that are not subscriptions, then you might not want to do this. All right, for this demo, we're only doing subscriptions. All right, so let's create the button here. So we're going to say let button or var button equals UI button of type system. I'm going to set some properties on it. Button dot tint color is white. Button dot background color is purple. And we're going to set the title. So set title. This is going to be a combination of the properties that, or sorry, the variables that we did up here. So we're going to say title plus space plus duration plus space plus the price for control state normal. We also have to, we're going to have to add a tap handler to that, and we can add that to the view. So earlier we got a reference to the stack view, so we're going to add arrange the subview, and we're going to put the button in there. All right, and then we're going to position and size it. So let's create a constraint for the height. Oops. And sort of relying on auto layout there. The button height related by equal to nil. Height multiplier is 1 and constant is going to be 90. And then in terms of the width, I'm going to relate this to the stack view. I'm going to make it the same width. So I'm going to go width is related to the stack view width, and constant is 0. And then we're going to add this to the button. So button dot add constraint height, and then because this one is related to the stack view, we actually have to add it to the stack view. All right, autocomplete was sort of acting up, but let me build this project and see if everything actually builds successfully. All right, so it looks like I made some typos. Self.
Okay, so it's the price.
The price is a decimal number, so we're actually have to get the string value for that. Yeah, let's take a look. Var button. Well, I think my Xcode is acting up a little bit. All right, so that built successfully, and now we're gonna add a tap handler for that. So why don't we create a tap handler here, because we're gonna need to set it as a button handler. We're gonna have to put that tag in front of it. So let's call this purchase tapped, and we are going to want the sender as a UI button, so it passes the button through, so we can check the tag, and the tag is going to tell us which product the user tapped on. Because if we have 3 products for purchase, we're going to create 3 buttons, and each of the buttons is going to have a different tag, which is going to correspond to the product. So here, let's add that. Button dot add target. Target is self. Action, we're going to use the @selector here, or sorry, it's the hashtag selector, and we're going to purchase tapped for the event touch up inside. And actually, let's not forget to set the tag. So we're going to set the tag to I, which, so you can remember up here, this is that counter that is looping through the packages. And how we're going to get a reference to that package later for purchase is we're going to keep track of the packages that we're looping through by declaring a variable up here. So we're going to say packages available for purchase is equal to an empty array of type. Now, what is a package? Maybe we can check this. An RC package. That doesn't seem quite right. So, okay, here. So it is of type purchases.package. All right, so as we're looping through them, store a reference to the package at the same index as we are going to tag the button with. So we're going to say self.packages available for purchase.append package. All right, so the first package we put in there will be at index 0, and we're also going to tag that button with 0. And then in the next iteration, right, the second package will be at index 1, and we're going to tag the button with 1 at that point, and that's how we're going to link it up. What's it saying here? All right then. Okay. So this should work. We should see some. We should see a button. Why is it saying I've never used this? That's not right. Did I? Okay. Let's build this just to make sure that, okay, it succeeded, because it seems like Xcode is acting up a little bit. All right, so if you're using Xcode 12 and you're running the iOS 14 simulator, it's not going to be able to fetch the products from App Store Connect. You're going to get an error if you try to do that. Here, let me just show you that real quick. So just so you see what it looks like. And what you're going to need to do instead is plug in your actual device and run it there so it can actually fetch the products. And the reason for this is because they are working on some, and it might be available already actually, a different way to test in-app purchases. So you can see here, you don't see any of the buttons, right? And in fact, if you go down here, it's going to say that it could not find the SK product for these. But if you check our App Store Connect, these are the exact product IDs that we have. So that doesn't make sense. But if you run it on an actual device, and I'll try and show this to you. So I'm going to run it on my device. All right. Let me shrink this a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to tap on Join Pro for Tours, and it crashed. Oh, yeah, I know why. This is a mistake I made here. We should be going from 0 to count -1. So if you were keen, you probably spotted that like 15 minutes ago when I made that mistake. Let's try this again. All right, so now let's hit this button, and sure enough, we see it, except that that looks really weird. SK product period unit year month. The price looks right, which is great. The name looks right. Let's just fix that unit up real quick there. Subscription period. This should be number of units. That's what I got wrong there. This should be number of units. Right? Now let's run it again. Perfect. That looks awesome. Now, if I tap on this right now, nothing is going to happen because we don't have anything in our button handler right here, right? But now we're going to copy that next snippet of code to process a purchase, and it's actually even simpler than what we've done here. All right, so let's take a look at the documentation and see what that next snippet is. All right, for making a purchase, what we have to do is pass the package into the purchase package method there. So let's copy that, and inside the purchase tapped, why don't we paste that in there? But first, which package do we pass into there, right? We have to get that let package equals self dot packages available for purchase, and we're going to say sender dot tag, right? Because the tag stores the index for that package. And down here, we're just going to say if the entitlement is going to be, and here we pass in the entitlement ID. Go back to entitlement, that ID is just pro. So we're going to say if that is active, then we're going to unlock the pro content. Now we're not going to unlock the pro content here in the pro view controller, because it's actually in the other view controller where we show the tours, right? So all we're going to do here is dismiss the pro view controller. So we're just going to call dismiss. Right, and then let me just build this again. What is it referring to here? I might have accidentally put that in there, or yeah, they had that extra rounded bracket there. Okay, what's going to happen is they're going to dismiss this pop-up. Oh, audible. It's going to dismiss this pop-up here. Right, and then when it comes back to here, what we're going to do is in the view will appear, we can check entitlements and show pro content. So how does that content get shown? Right, if we scroll down, it's get subscription status. So let's copy that and let's paste that in there. Again, our entitlement ID is just pro. So if the user is pro, what we're going to do is we're going to remove the pro button so that they can't tap it anymore, and we're just going to call remove from superview. And we are also going to change the tour label. So we're going to say tour label.text is equal to check out these recommended tours, and then we're going to, you know, do whatever that pro content is. That's what we're going to show here. And for the purpose of this demo, I'm going to create a, create a label for the tours. So we're going to say let label equals UI label, label.text equals great tour A, and we're going to insert it into the stack view. Self.stackView.add arranged subview label. Let's see, do we have, yes, we need to import the purchases framework here. Let's Command B and build that. And yeah, we're gonna have to use self there. All right. And that's all it took. Those 3 code snippets allowed us to display our in-app purchase products, to process purchases, and also to check the user's entitlements. And then in the next lesson, we're going to test it out. As you saw in this video, displaying our in-app purchases, processing purchases from the user, and checking the user's level of entitlement only takes a few lines of code with RevenueCat. Now, if you haven't gotten your free RevenueCat account yet, just visit cwc.to/revcat5. Now I want to turn it over to you. Now that you see how RevenueCat works, what do you think about it? Let me know by leaving a quick comment below. Lastly, if you like this video and you want to see more, don't forget to click that thumbs up button and hit subscribe so you don't miss the next lesson. In the next lesson, I'll teach you how to test your in-app purchase implementation on an actual device. All right, thanks for watching, and I'll see you there.